Hey, how's it going, and welcome to the next episode of my Girls und Panzer comprehensive review series. Ignore the fact that I haven't done one of these in several months. Senshido was cancelled for the past few months due to COVID. That's my excuse. If this is your first time seeing one of these, I definitely recommend starting with the first episode and making your way through them. And also watch the show for yourself, please. It's good. Otherwise, feel free to ignore. This is just a weird passion project of mine. But anyways, on to episode 6, which immediately begins where 5 left off as Ori gets their first elimination. I figured I'd start this episode by discussing a topic I wasn't really sure if I wanted to bring up or not, and that's the English dub. Girls und Panzer is one of my all-time favorite shows, and I think the Japanese cast is fantastic. Every character is voiced pretty much perfectly, and they all do a great job. Naturally, I've watched a couple of episodes and a certain OVA in English, and it's overall okay. It's definitely not the way I'd recommend you watch the show, but it's not the worst thing ever. I could honestly dedicate a whole video critiquing the English dub, but I feel like that'd delve into territory that might seem rude to the voice actresses involved. I think my biggest issue is just the fact that they sound kind of uninterested a lot of the time. It's not necessarily that the characters are miscast, although some do sound a bit off, but it overall gives off this sort of vibe of being just another dub the crew had to get done and get out. Again, not the worst thing ever, but it's not really something I could recommend either. Anyways, back to the show itself, I love how delightfully maniacal Alyssa is. I would describe Girls und Panzer as being a show with antagonists, but not necessarily villains. At most, they're schemers, egotistical, or cold-hearted, but definitely not evil. Alyssa is the first of these somewhat nefarious characters, and she adds an element of kinda sorta cheating, but not really to the equation. The radio interception she's doing is technically not illegal, so it's fair game and not something Saunders could really get in trouble for. As they say, all is fair in love and war. I generally really like Senshido's rule set since there's a lot of opportunity to do things that are maybe morally questionable but not against the rules. The list of illegal things include using parts or equipment not sanctioned by the league, voluntarily leaving the competition area, firing directly on humans, firing whilst in a ceasefire zone, attacking a vehicle that has been declared inoperable, disrespect towards the judges or other participants, actions that are judged to be throwing the match, which are all reasonable and designed to, above all else, keep the participants safe and respect the spirit of the sport. Don't intentionally try to hurt others, don't just leave, and don't throw the match. Beyond that, it's up to you. Intercept radio signals, break your opponent's spirit, just do whatever you want, dude. But don't kill anybody. Alyssa's more crafty and high-strung personality works really well with Kay's laid-back and honest approach to the sport. The two make for a good contrasting duo, and she's one of my favorite side characters. There's this great moment where the Duck team sneaks up on Alyssa, and the two have this stare down that goes uninterrupted for several seconds in total silence. It's a great bit of comedy since it goes on for so long before Noriko taps the tank for them to get the hell out of there. In the following chase, Noriko throws off a smoke bomb, once again going to show that very few things are downright illegal in Senshido, and it encourages creativity and usage of whatever resource you can squeeze by the rules. Just like real warfare, the sport almost expects the participant to get close to breaking the rules without actually breaking them. Like, imagine if you're watching a baseball game and the pitcher tosses a fucking firecracker at the batter. It'd be great. God, why isn't Senshido real? On the subject of characters I haven't really talked much about, the Duck team. They're a pretty good squad, but not one of my favorites. The members all have pretty good designs. Akebi definitely stands out the most, mostly due to her huge, bouncing, magnificent personality. What'd you think I was talking about? You horny? Are you horny? They're all pretty high energy, but not really little rat creatures like the Rabbit team, which I think makes them more enjoyable to see. Their dedication to reforming their volleyball club is also commendable, and you can tell they have a real passion for the sport and each other. There's this one random shot of Alyssa drawn in a totally different style that's really memorable, just because of how detailed her face is. It really shows her shocked expression after being led into an ambush, and it's just a really entertaining little scene. Her ensuing breakdown is also funny to see, and Alyssa's VA is great in this episode. The fight gets more frantic as the girls get surrounded and the Duck team is eliminated, as Naomi gets more time to shine. Contrasting Alyssa, Naomi is pretty straight-faced and to the point, and way less prone to panicking. She provides a good mellow to the otherwise high-energy girls of Saunders to help balance it out. Rabbit team then bites the dust, and the situation seems more and more hopeless. But a quick prep talk from Mio perks the girls' spirits back up. The final confrontation is super intense. Of course, I have to praise the music for how well it builds up the tension, and the various shots of the characters up close with the shadows and the great camera angles makes it really thrilling to watch. It has a good conclusion with the anglerfish team getting eliminated a mere second or so after the Saunders tank does, which again goes to show they're only really winning these by the skin of their teeth. Every one of their victories feels like a celebration, and there's a genuine feeling of, wow, they did it, after each encounter. Kay once again displays her friendly nature by just hugging Maho after the match, and it's revealed that she on purpose chased them down with a few less tanks, and apologizes for spying on their radios. It's obvious that if Kay were a little bit more brutal, she would have totally won the match, but it's just not in her nature to be that way. It's a sport above all else to her, and she places great value on the spirit of competition rather than the actual result, which is pretty commendable. The post-victory celebration is short-lived, as it's revealed Mako's grandma is in the hospital, which freaks her out so badly she opts to just swim back to Ororai. This is when Maho and Erika appear, with Maho lending the girls her helicopter. This is a pretty important act for the character, since up until this point the audience probably has a leaning towards disliking Maho for how she acted. But this scene humanizes her a bit and shows that she's not entirely cold-hearted. Overall, episode 6 is another good one, with some exciting Senshido, some good character moments, and ends on a somewhat dark note with Mako's grandma being hospitalized. Episode 7 begins and awooga awooga, that outfit Hana's wearing is mighty cute. That's pretty much the end of that thought. Then we meet Mako's grandma, who manages to toe a very fine line between kind of being just a horrible bitch, but also being pretty funny. It's an advanced level of old lady pettiness that in real life would probably be really infuriating, but as a fictional character, she's great. She has so many snarky comments, like when the girls mention they won their first match and she responds with, "Who cares about winning one match?" Her relationship with Mako is also really funny since they're basically opposite humans, but she obviously cares a lot about her and just wants the best for her. In comparison to the previous episodes, this one is a lot more slow and slice of life. It's a story gap in between the two intense Senshido battles of episodes 6 and 8, and unfortunately that means there's not really a whole lot to talk about. It's mostly just a lot of conversation, but there is one in particular that stands out. One of the biggest themes of Girls und Panzer is the overall concept of sportsmanship, and where you should draw the line between fun and the pursuit of victory. Since Maho has spent her time training under the Nishizumi school, which only expects victory, it's had a permanent impact on her enjoyment of the sport. When you compare this to characters like Kei or Yukari, who participate purely for the love of the game, it brings to light a pretty universal question that I think most people have asked throughout their lives. Do I want to win or have fun? Obviously, the simple answer would be to have fun, but for many people, winning is the fun. Girls und Panzer naturally ends up siding with having fun, but there's obviously no universal answer to that question. As Saori says, Senshido is what you make of it. And I think that's a philosophy you can apply to pretty much anything. Also, Yukari geeking out over Miho's thank you is really cute. Again, this episode is pretty much entirely just character moments and development, but there's some fun moments like the anglerfish girls teaching the other teams some tips and tricks. I especially like Saori's love talk with the rabbit team girls. They make for pretty cute little scenes, but not really anything too substantial. Most of the rest of the episode is dedicated to locating a stray tank, which they ultimately find just hanging out in some water. A second tank is then located within the bowels of the ship, and then cut to a big bath scene. Yeah, it's weird, it just immediately cuts to this. The episode ends with the girls' next Senshido match against Anzio, where they are essentially off-screened. It gives the impression that Anzio were so weak in comparison they were just annihilated, but as we learn in the real Anzio battle OVA, that's not the case at all. I will be covering that OVA at a later date, but it is kind of a strange situation. In fact, Anchovy isn't even given a name in this episode. If I had to take a guess, and I'm really not sure about this one way or the other, I would assume there was some kind of budgeting or time issue involved. Simply due to the tournament structure, the girls would have had to face Anzio, then Pravda, then Kuromori Mine, and with only 5 episodes left, they probably figured it'd be better to sideline Anzio in favor of the other two more threatening teams. There might have also been a money concern at play. I'm sure making episode 7 what it is, that being a tank hunt with some character interaction, was a lot less expensive and time-consuming than making a whole full-fledged tank fight. Luckily, the battle is shown in the OVA, and thank God, because it's awesome. But if that OVA didn't exist, this would stand out as being somewhat odd. Anyways, that concludes this episode of my Girls und Panzer comprehensive review series. Thank you all so much for watching. The next episode in the series will come out quicker than this one did, I assure you. So yeah, see you guys in 2022.